let me tell you something most people don't expect to hear. A NICU isn't just a place of fear, it's a place where miracles learn to breathe. People think they know what happens behind those doors, but the truth? It's nothing like the movies. Inside a NICU, time bends, hope gets tested, and strength shows up in the tiniest bodies you've ever seen. And if you think this story is only about medicine, well, that's where most people get it wrong. Here's the counterintuitive part. Sometimes the scariest moments are also the ones where real progress begins. While parents feel powerless, an invisible system of precision, love, and relentless attention is fighting minute by minute for a life that fits in the palm of a hand. The pain is real, the uncertainty is brutal, but there's a reason so many families walk out changed forever, carrying a different kind of faith. If you've ever wondered what really happens when a newborn is fighting for life, or if you've lived it and felt like no one truly understood, this isn't just information. This is clarity. This is connection. And by the end of this journey, you won't see the NICU the same way again. I remember the first time I heard the word NICU, and honestly, it hit me like a cold splash of water. NICU stands for Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, but nobody tells you what that really feels like. It's the place where life slows down, speeds up, and holds its breath all at once. You walk in thinking it's just another hospital wing, and then, boom, you realize this is where tiny lives fight their biggest battles. It's intense, overwhelming, and strangely hopeful at the same time. Most babies don't end up in the NICU by choice, obviously, and that's the hard truth nobody sugarcoats. Premature birth is one of the most common reasons, when the baby simply arrived before the world was ready. Others come in because of low birth weight, breathing difficulties, infections, or congenital conditions that need immediate attention. Each reason sounds clinical on paper, but behind every diagnosis, there's a parent trying to stay strong while their heart quietly panics. And here's the thing most people don't realize until they're living it. The NICU isn't about what went wrong, it's about what needs help right now. Doctors move fast, nurses act with purpose, and every decision has weight. You start learning new words, new fears, and new kinds of hope almost instantly. And just when you think you understand why your baby is there, the next moments pull you straight into what happens the second those doors close behind you. The moment a baby is admitted to the NICU, everything moves fast, almost too fast to process. I remember standing there thinking, wait, we just arrived, but the medical team was already 10 steps ahead. Vital signs are checked constantly. Heart rate, oxygen levels, temperature, blood pressure, nothing is left to chance. Every beep and every number tells a story, and trust me, the staff reads those stories fluently, even when parents are still trying to breathe. Then come the incubators and warmers, and at first they look intimidating, almost cold. But here's the twist. Those machines are doing what the womb used to do. They keep the baby warm, protected, and stable, while their tiny body figures things out. It's not about distance, it's about survival. That clear plastic wall isn't separation, it's support, even if it doesn't feel that way in the moment. And yes, this is usually when parents realize they can't hold their baby right away. That part hurts in a way words barely touch. Your arms feel empty, your instincts feel useless, and your heart feels confused. You ask yourself 1,000 questions you don't say out loud. But while you're learning to wait, something else is happening quietly. Machines are taking over for love, just for now, and they're doing it for a reason that becomes clearer when you start noticing what those machines actually do. When you first step into the NICU, the sound hits you before anything else. Beeps, alarms, soft humming. It feels like a strange orchestra playing nonstop. I remember staring at the heart and oxygen monitors, trying to understand what each line meant, as if decoding them could somehow protect my baby. Those screens track every heartbeat and every breath, catching tiny changes before they become big problems. In that room, numbers don't lie. and seconds matter more than we'd like to admit. Then there are ventilators and CPAP machines, quietly doing the work fragile lungs can't fully handle yet. Breathing seems so automatic to us, but for a NICU baby, it can be the hardest job in the world. These machines don't replace the baby's effort, they support it, like a steady hand on a shaky bike. Little by little, pressure is adjusted, oxygen is reduced, and hope grows in millimeters instead of miles. Feeding tubes, IV lines, and medications come next. And yes, they look overwhelming at first glance. A tube delivers milk drop by drop when sucking is still too much. IV lines carry fluids and medicine that keep tiny bodies balanced and strong. Every machine has a purpose. Every wire tells a story of protection. And once you start understanding why each one is there, you can't help but wonder who's behind all these life-saving decisions, watching every detail without ever blinking.
One thing I learned quickly in the NICU is that no baby fights alone. Behind that tiny incubator, there's an entire team moving like a well-rehearsed orchestra. Neonatologists lead the way, making critical decisions with calm voices and sharp focus. NICU nurses are everywhere at once, checking, adjusting, comforting, sometimes before you even realize something changed. They don't just care for babies, they quietly care families too. Respiratory therapists play a role most people don't notice until breathing becomes the main concern. They fine-tune ventilators, adjust CPAP settings, and respond the second oxygen levels dip. Add in specialists, cardiologists, neurologists, surgeons, and suddenly you realize this isn't just medicine, it's teamwork at the highest level. Everyone speaks the same language, even when the situation changes minute by minute. And that's the part that surprised me most. Decisions are made constantly, sometimes in seconds. One number shifts, one breath changes, and the plan adapts immediately. Parents often feel like spectators at first, watching it all unfold in real time. But while the team works around the clock, something else starts to happen quietly. You begin to see just how fragile this life is and how much depends on the smallest details. In the NICU, you stop thinking in days or weeks and start thinking in moments. 1 gram of weight gained feels like a victory parade. One steady breath feels like relief you didn't know you were holding. Every heartbeat matters, and suddenly life is measured in the smallest units possible. It's humbling, honestly, to realize how something so tiny can be so incredibly strong and so incredibly delicate at the same time. Progress in the NICU rarely moves in a straight line, and that's one of the hardest lessons to accept. A good morning can turn into a tense afternoon without warning. Babies can handle one challenge today and struggle with something completely different tomorrow. There's no script, no guarantee, and no way to predict what the next hour might bring, and that uncertainty sits heavy on every parent's chest. You quickly learn the difference between good days and critical days. On good days, numbers improve, and hope sneaks back in quietly. On critical days, alarms sound louder, time feels slower, and your faith is tested in ways you never expected. Living in that rhythm changes you, even if you don't notice it right away. And just when you think fragility is the whole story, the emotional weight on parents begins to show itself in ways no monitor can measure. At some point, fear takes on a very specific form, the fear of touching your own baby. I remember hovering my hand in the air, afraid that one wrong move could undo everything. Wires, tubes, alarms, they make you feel like a guest instead of a parent. Your instincts are loud, but your confidence feels whisper-thin. Loving your baby becomes something you do carefully, almost quietly. Then comes the moment you leave the hospital without your child, and nothing prepares you for that kind of pain. The car feels too empty, the house feels too quiet, and your arms don't know what to do with themselves. Guilt sneaks in. Should I stay longer? Should I be stronger? While hope tries to keep up. Sleep becomes optional, exhaustion becomes normal, and emotions run on autopilot. That's why NICU parents often say they're living in survival mode, and trust me, it's not an exaggeration. You wake up, you show up, and you hold it together however you can. There's no long-term planning, no emotional luxury, just getting through the next hour.
And while you're surviving, something unexpected starts to happen in the background, something small but powerful that begins to shift everything.
In the NICU, victories don't come wrapped in big celebrations. They arrive quietly, like gaining a few grams on the scale that almost no one else would notice. I remember staring at those numbers, smiling like they were lottery results. Each tiny gain means the body is learning, adapting, fighting back. It's amazing how something so small can carry so much hope. Breathing without support becomes another milestone that feels unreal when it happens. One less setting on the machine, one tube removed, one step closer to independence. You learn to celebrate progress in fractions, not leaps. Every adjustment feels like trust being placed back into that little body, and you start believing that strength is being built one breath at a time. And then there's the first time you get to hold your baby, really hold them, skin to skin, heart to heart. It's emotional, awkward, and perfect all at once. The first bottle or breastfeeding attempt may be messy and slow, but it's magical. These moments don't erase the fear, but they change the tone of the story. And as victories add up, time itself starts to feel very different. In the NICU, days quietly blur into weeks, and weeks sometimes stretch into months. You stop asking what day it is and start asking how the night went. Time doesn't move forward the way it used to. It circles, pauses, and surprises you. I remember thinking I'd be here just a few days, and then realizing how quickly routines can form in the most unexpected places. One of the hardest parts is accepting and always give exact answers. Medicine has limits, and every baby writes their own timeline. You learn that "we'll see" isn't uncertainty, it's honesty. As frustrating as it is, those words also leave space for possibility, and in the NICU, possibility matters more than precision. Patience becomes something you learn the hard way, without lessons or warnings. You practice waiting while listening to monitors, watching numbers, and holding on to hope. Growth doesn't rush, healing doesn't follow schedules, and progress refuses to be forced. And just when waiting feels unbearable, stories begin to surface. Stories that remind you why you keep showing up. At some point in the NICU, you start hearing stories, quiet ones, shared in hallways or whispered by nurses. Stories of babies who weren't supposed to make it, but did. Babies who defied timelines, predictions, and statistics. I remember clinging to those stories like lifelines because they proved something important. Outcomes aren't always written in advance. Hope, it turns out, can be stubborn. Those stories do more than inspire. They keep parents going on days when nothing else works. When progress stalls or setbacks hit, remembering that someone else once stood exactly where you're standing makes all the difference. Hope doesn't erase fear, but it softens it just enough to breathe again. It reminds you that today's struggle doesn't get the final word. That's why so many people call NICU babies little warriors. Not because they're loud or dramatic, but because they fight quietly, constantly, and bravely. They show strength in the smallest movements and resilience in every heartbeat. Watching that kind of courage changes how you see life itself. And once you've seen it, you can't help but wonder how all of this fits into a bigger picture that's still unfolding. Now I want you to pause for a second and really think about everything you've just seen and felt. What does it change inside you to know how much strength lives in something so small? The NICU teaches a lesson most people never learn. Life doesn't grow through force. It grows through persistence. And if a newborn can fight one breath at a time, what excuse do we have to give up on our own battles? Ask yourself this: how would your life shift if you respected small progress the way NICU parents do? If you stopped waiting for big wins and started honoring tiny victories instead? Growth, healing, and success rarely arrive all at once. They show up quietly, consistently, and only if you stay present long enough to notice them. If this story moved you, challenged you, or made you see life differently, don't let it stop here.
Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. There are more stories, more lessons, and more hope waiting for you. And trust me, this journey is just getting started.